Hey Ogres, this past week I had some family obligations that popped up, so we ended up not having time to record on Saturday. But we didn't want to just skip another week, so we decided that since we talked about the samurai episode last week, we'd post it for your listening pleasure. This was the first time we were using the new equipment, but I've taken the original into my editing software and cleaned it up a bit that it may be easier and more pleasurable to listen to. So please enjoy this previously unreleased episode.
Prepare yourselves for a battle of epic proportions between two titans. Feast upon their voices and revel in their words. This is Dueling Ogres.
Hello, Ogres, and welcome to Episode 8. Thank you for joining us, as always, on this humid Wednesday afternoon, Earth date June 25th, 2014. I'm your host, Remington Hitchcock, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Brandon Full. Say hello, Brandon.
Konnichiwa.
So what are we going to be talking about today, Brandon?
I don't know.
You know exactly what we're going to be talking about today.
We're going to be talking about samurai.
Samurai.
See, what's funny is I was about to make a comment and say, let's see how long we can go before one of us does the super racist Japanese voice. And you beat me to it. We literally made it.
Didn't you go, oh, like that?
No, I went, oh, normal. Just like, no, that's when I'm surprised. I say, oh, that's nothing.
I'm pretty sure you beat
racist about that.
Uh-huh. Just because you always say, oh, like a Japanese man, doesn't mean that it's not racist. So yes, we're going to be talking about samurais and samurai movies, because I have seen some samurai movies where Brandon has not seen samurai movies.
I'm not a big movie person, really.
Well, I'm not either, but I don't know how it came to be that I think whenever I was working the night shifts, I'd always go to the upper movie channels, and there would be some random samurai movies on.
Yeah, it seems like those in cowboy movies.
Yeah.
On a lot. And I see a black and white movie, and most of the time I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Which has cut me out from a lot of good movies, I know, but...
Yeah. Some of them can be kind of slow, but if you don't mind reading the subtitles, which you say that you, generally late at night, you guys run with the,
subtitles on anyway in our apartment, yeah.
You should really watch a couple. I mean, I know that there are some that you can find on Netflix or...
I'm sure I'd enjoy it. I was watching one of the 1008 Zatoichi movies on YouTube. It was labeled like best samurai fight scene ever or something.
Yeah.
It was not a very interesting fight scene, but...
Now, there have been a lot of Zatoichi movies.
Well, yeah, I was looking him up on Wikipedia, and there's like multiple people who've played him.
Yeah. I think the most recent one was the Blind Swordsman Zatoichi. Came out in 2003, starring Beat Takeshi Kitano. I think that he goes by the nickname Beat. I don't know a whole lot about the actor himself. Yes, but Beat, B-E-A-T. And that was a really interesting movie because it had. I actually have it on DVD. It has some humorous parts, and then it's almost cut like an anime almost, with the amount... Damn it, I always forget to turn off my sound on that. With just the inordinate amount of blood just spewing out of enemies. And...
Well, I was watching the fight scene. I don't know what Zatoichi movie it was, but it was very clear as he was cutting people that the blood was either painted on or added on top of the film stock or something, which made it a lot funnier to see. Dude. We're 2 minutes into recording.
My lack of professionalism is astounding.
Speaking of lack of professionalism, as we go on, I figure you can go through and talk about some of these samurai movies and stuff. And since I've seen very few of them, I will be reading the very meager amount of notes I took in preparation. I'm going to this little site called Wikipedia, if you've ever heard of it, to read some facts as we go along, too.
What was that again?
Wikipedia. I'll show you later.
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia, yes.
Wikipedia.
It's like a really evil centipede who has it's a really evil book about centipedes.
Okay.
Wikipedia.
So why does it have samurai information?
Huh?
Samurai information. Huh?
All right, so samurai.
So tell us a little bit about the history of samurai, Brandon.
Oh, I don't know the history of samurai.
Well, tell me what you know.
I do know that the word samurai translates to. Should have had this pulled up.
Good job on having your show notes pulled up.
Well, see, I keep my Kindle set to the side so I can focus on discussion instead of having it pushed up in my face like you do with your little noises and talkings and
these new mic. Yeah, we got new equipment. We're trying it out, and
hopefully we sound awesome.
Hopefully we sound awesome.
You think it'll add some rich deepness to my voice and make it sound less nasally?
I did pump your bass a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's set to about the same level as mine. Of course, I don't really need it because I have this crystal clear voice. It's like having sex with sound waves.
Or having sex with Soundwave.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
The Transformer. Was he the one that did he turn into like a cassette player, right? Was that Soundwave?
Well, he had turned into a boombox and then had a little cassette player.
He turned into a boombox?
Yeah, he turned into a boombox, and then there was a smaller Transformer that was a tape that lived inside of him, like a puppy or a kangaroo, and its roo, a kangaroo.
I literally just looked at this before we started what the definition of samurai was.
You are terrible.
And now I can't find it.
Ugh.
Okay, so samurai means armored sword guy.
You're just making shit up. Man.
I am absolutely not.
Armored sword guy? Is that the literal transliteration?
That's the literal translation, yeah. Where the fuck was it? It was right here.
Can't you just Google it? At this point, I could pull up Google and type in samurai.
Google, what is samurai mean?
Okay. Do you even have voice on that thing?
No. Okay, the term samurai originally meant those who serve in close attendance to nobility.
Yes.
And that is samurai.
Right. With our lack of preparation, the samurai would serve the shogun, correct?
Yeah, the samurai, or the daisho, or daio, which was the feudal lord. Originally, samurai, from what the book I read, and I guess we should say we've said it multiple times already, but I'm way more uninformed than I intended to be. So I've read some stuff, so don't take this. If you're writing a paper on samurai, don't use this as
We are not Wikipedia, that's for sure.
Which is hilarious because I'm literally staring at Wikipedia, and we're still not Wikipedia. But yeah, the first known or written about samurai was the 700s.
Okay.
Like 700, 710.
And what is that?
That is Yamato Takeru.
Okay.
Takeru. And he,
For somebody who actually took Japanese, your pronunciation is worse than mine.
Well, to speak Japanese, and this is how I feel anyway, if you pronounce it the way it's supposed to, in individual little 2-letter syllables, it kind of sounds a little racist. It's not. But if I were to say, all right, the first samurai was Yamato Takeru, I just sound like I'm making fun of it. So
I think the stress would be on the second part, so it'd be Yamato.
Is the stress on the second part?
Yamato Takeru.
Yamato.
And the R's happen instead of the back of the mouth, like in English, would be with the tip of the tongue. Takeru.
Yamato Takeru.
So it's almost like you're saying a soft D. Ru. This is good listening, right?
Oh yeah, seriously.
Takeru.
Alright, here is the legend of Prince Yamato Takeru.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm reading straight from Wikipedia.
Good call.
Prince Osu slew his elder brother Owusu. His father, the Emperor Kaiko, feared his brutal temperament. To keep him at a distance, the father sent him to Uzomu Province, today the eastern part of Shimane Prefecture, and then the land of Kumasu, today Kumamoto Prefecture. However, Osu succeeded in defeating his enemies, in the latter case by cross-dressing as a maid attendant at a drinking party. Didn't you have a run-in with a guy where you ended up defeating him by cross-dressing as a maid at a drinking party?
Well, I mean, I was just cross-dressing for the fun of it,
It just happened to be that you defeated him at the moment.
Yeah.
One of the enemies he defeated praised him and gave him the title Yamato Takeru, meaning the brave of Yamato. But Emperor Kaiko's mind was unchanged. Kaiko sent Yamato Takeru to the eastern land, whose people disobeyed the imperial court. Yamato Takeru met his aunt, Princess Yamato Hime, the highest priestess of Amaterasu at Ise Grand Shrine, and grieved. My father wishes I would die? Princess Yamato Hime showed him compassion and lent him, this part's awesome, and lent him a holy sword named Ame no Murakumo no Tsurugi.
Okay.
And then in parentheses, Kusanagi no Tsurugi. Which Susanoo, the brother god of Amaterasu, found in the body of the 8-headed great serpent Yamato no Orochi. Or Orochi. I think it's Orochi. Orochi means snake in Japan, I think. At least, as far as Magic the Gathering goes, Orochi is typically on snake cards.
Okay.
Yamamoto Takeru went to the eastern land. He lost his wife, Ototachi Bana Hime, during a storm when she sacrificed herself to soothe the anger of the sea god. Like you do.
Yeah.
He defeated many enemies in the eastern land, and legend has it that he and a local old man composed the first Sudoka in Kai province with Mount Tsukuba as its theme. A Sudoka is a poem.
Ah, okay.
On his return, he blasphemed a local god. A local god, that's awesome.
I mean, you don't do that within the locality.
Yeah, you don't really have local gods at all.
Yeah.
Anymore, I guess.
Well, I mean, like, back then, you wouldn't do it on his home turf.
Yeah, hey, that's Jeff. Our local god. What'd you say about Jeff?
What'd you say about Jeff the God of Biscuits?
Because if they have a local god, presumably that god is still fucking there. It's probably like a dude who's just like, yeah, I'm a god. I'm picturing like Xerxes from 300, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what do you say about me? On his return, he blasphemed a local god of Mount Ibuki, which sits on the border of Omi Province and Mino Province. The god cursed him with disease and he fell ill. That's the end of the story. I'm not sure how that ties in to him being the first samurai, but that was where it led me when it said the first written account of a samurai.
Okay. Well.
So I did it's pretty sweet. Holy sword, 8-headed serpent.
Yeah.
Killing yourself to please the sea gods. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So what about the code?
Oh, bushido.
Yeah.
I have some stuff on that too. Let's go ahead and get into discussing some of the different movies, and I'll kind of just pepper in throughout. That way, because if I just read all my stuff I have ahead of time, then it's going to be, 45 minutes of us just talking movies.
Right.
This way I can kind of interstitial with the half page of a baby notebook I have written of notes.
Okay. I guess to start off on the movies, you can't really talk about samurai movies without talking about Akira Kurosawa movies. He did the bulk of the most prominent samurai flicks.
I mean, when people talk about samurai movies, they are most of the time talking about him, right?
Yeah, they're most of the time talking about a Kurosawa film. And he's done some really, really weird ones as well. Like, if you ever have the chance, this is not a samurai movie, but it is a Kurosawa movie. Or a Kurosawa movie. Dodeskaden. Let me see if I can pull up some images for you, because it is just Dodeskaden.
I'm glad we won't have to do any cutting of this episode.
Yeah, we're just going to let people sit in silence the whole time.
It is so, it's so shocking whenever there's silence when you're listening to a podcast. As I mentioned multiple times, I listen to a ridiculous amount of podcasts. And if there's silence for like 3 or 4 seconds, even if I'm doing something else and kind of tuning out what they're talking about, when I hear silence, it's super noticeable because I immediately did my iPod die or my headphones unplugged? And then they start talking again. So
yeah, that's why I try to come back through and cut most of the silence out of things. So Dodeskaden is a 1970 film of various tales in the lives of of Tokyo slum dwellers, including a mentally deficient young man obsessed with driving his own commuter trolley.
So you've seen this movie?
Yes, I have.
He's upset as in he wants to drive a commuter trolley, or he just constantly drives it? And that's his obsession.
It's been a little while since I've seen it. If I remember right, he has this very sickly look to it. I can't recall if maybe this is an extra character that he's seeing in his mind. Because, like I said, it's been a really long time since I've seen it. But the guy...
Oh, weird.
Yeah,
the guy
makeup,
on the right?
Yeah, the makeup in it is just very disconcerting.
What we're looking at is like a wide-eyed, hooded, sort of corpsey-looking man.
Yeah, he's not even hooded. That's his hair. It's just crazy all over the place, yeah. But yeah, if you get a chance to look up that movie. As for the actual samurai flicks, there is Seven Samurai. That was a Kurosawa movie. Rashomon, which is, if I remember right, that's one of the ones that's heralded as like the big samurai movie.
And Rashomon is actually the second evolution of Ichamon, which is interesting. It's a Pokemon joke.
Yeah.
Ichamon, Rashomon.
Yeah.
God damn it, Ren.
Because I played a whole lot of Pokemon.
That's made up. It's a joke. Itchy, Rashy. God, I hate you.
Gosh, you're awful. Everything you say is terrible.
Perhaps you should commit seppuku.
I should. I've got my wakizashi right here.
Traditionally, they used a tonto. There's your samurai fact.
There you go.
Dun, dun, dun,
You
dun,
just
dun.
pepper that shit. And then Yojimbo. And Seven Samurai and Yojimbo also spread into the spaghetti westerns of the time. Seven Samurai was, of course, the Magnificent Seven. The story of the Seven Samurai was based off, or of Magnificent Seven was based off of the movie Seven Samurai.
Yeah, wasn't that almost a shot-for-shot remake?
I don't want to say it was a shot-for-shot, because I've seen them both a couple of times, three times. Maybe it's just because the setting is so different, and Magnificent Seven I've seen in color, whereas Seven Samurai I've only seen in black and white. The landscape is different enough that it's not the same to me.
Yojimbo in Japanese means bodyguard.
These are just things that you remember.
Yeah. Welcome to Remember Cast.
So Magnificent Seven came out, or I don't remember when it came out, fairly early on. Starring Yul Brynner, Steve McQueen, Charles Bronson, James Colburn, Robert Vaughn, and a few other. Those were the more famous actors of the time. Seven Samurai came out in 1954. When it comes to samurai movies, there are a few actors that really played a lot of the samurais. So there's Toshiro Mifune and Takashi Shimura. Those were both stars in Seven Samurai. They were also in Rashomon, Musashi Miyamoto.
Rashomon.
Yeah.
So
which came out in 1950.
Why don't we pick...
And Yojimbo.
Why don't you pick maybe the movie on there you're the most familiar with, and we can get into a little more detail on that. About, what happens in the movie, basic storyline, stuff like that. Because, bottom line, if you want a second to think about it, if there's anything you're more familiar with the storyline. Because really, the whole meat and potatoes of why we chose this, besides you having seen a lot of samurai movies, is samurai are pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
Really what it comes down to.
Yeah. The problem is like, as I was researching this stuff, I just put down some basic notes, hoping that I would remember. And I always regret that afterward. Because I come into it and I'm like, oh, wait, what?
Yeah, tell me about it.
What's going on?
We missed a week recording, and I had an extra week to take notes, and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Or a very small amount of notes here, but...
Yeah. So I would say that the one that I've watched many a time would be The Blind Swordsman Zatoichi, the most recent one that came out in 2003. With,
tell me about him. What's
Kitano.
his deal? He's a blind swordsman, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So the movie is clearly him just bumbling around, Dick Van Dyke style, tripping over things. Oh, right?
No, that's not. Like I said, it has some humorous parts to it. There's one particular scene that he paints eyeballs
Over his eyelids. For what purpose?
To
keep his eyes closed so he looks like he's aware?
I believe he's doing it to fool some people who are looking for him to assassinate him. So I think oh God, man, it's even been so long since I've seen this one. This is a fail of a podcast.
You are so
Brandon.
useless.
Everything we do is just terrible.
Well, so the basic premise is He's blind.
Yes.
But, I mean, in the character, not specifically of Zatoichi, but the idea of, like, the blind hero whose other senses are heightened, beyond, is a pretty basic trope now. I don't know if it stems from Zatoichi.
I'm sure it would.
But, I mean, the earlier Zatoichi movies were early, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. 1964, Adventures of Zatoichi.
Was that the first one?
I don't think it was even the first one. That was just one of the... It starred Shintaro Katsu, who also played Hanzo the Razor, which we'll get into a little bit later, because that was a samurai movie that was very, very, very racy, I guess I could say.
Like, sexy?
Yes, like sexy. Shintaro Katsu played Zatoichi in several movies through the 60s. I've seen maybe one of him playing Zatoichi, and I think he did a really good job with the blind aspect. Whereas the 2003 one that I was getting to talking about, he's very measured. He seems to always know where he's going. He's just the ancient Zatoichi.
Yeah.
Zatoichi who has the wherewithal of everything around him. Whereas Shintaro Katsu, there was this definite, you could tell he was closing his eyes or obscuring his vision, and he wasn't particularly used to it. So there was a little bit of fumbling around with his sword action and stuff, and it looked a little awkward, but not to the point where it was unbelievable.
So what is Zatoichi's story, though? Do you know?
The Blind Swordsman one, the 2003 one with Beat Takeshi.
Well, it's the basic same character in all the movies.
Well,
isn't it?
yeah, it's a blind masseur. For the 2003 movie, comes to a town in control of warring gangs, and while bunking with a family, he meets two women with their own agenda. That's the IMDb.
Okay, the sword fight that I saw with Zatoichi was from the 1967 movie Zatoichi Challenged.
Okay.
And this guy, I don't know who the actor is playing him here.
2007?
No, 1967. I might have said 2007, but 1967.
No, you probably said it and I heard.
But yeah, he does a really good job. I mean, he clearly just has his eyes closed, but as the fight scene goes on, he doesn't play, and I find it kind of...
That's Shintaro Katsu.
It's neat, but it is a little tropey sometimes when you have the blind character who just always knows where they're going and what they're doing. I know you've seen this movie. It had the guy that played the Hurricane. I can't remember his name now, the actor. The movie takes place in a post-apocalyptic world. The big reveal, spoiler of a movie I can't think of the name of, the big reveal is that he's blind. It's not The Road, but it's something similar to that. He walks through a post-apocalyptic world, and he's like an awesome shot with a gun. He hears where people are. He always wears glasses. Book of Eli.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that movie was pretty cool, but it kind of did the thing where he never trips up. He knows where he's going. And I'm not saying, the hero's blind, so they should be tripping over shit and stuff. That would be kind of making fun of blindness or whatever. But there would still be downsides. Even if your senses are super heightened, in a lot of situations, you would be at a disadvantage.
Yeah. And
what I liked about this fight scene here, you can look it up on YouTube. You can either look up Zatoichi Challenged, or what I searched for was best samurai fight scene, and that's what it shows up as.
Oh, yeah.
But as he fights this guy, he's protecting a family. He, stumbles and trips over, a thing you'd hitch a horse to, tie a horse to.
Yeah.
And not an intentional dodge, but just straight up trips over it, which happens to luck him into the guy missing and getting his sword stuck in the wood.
Mm-hmm.
But he kind of trips over it, He can hear where the swords are. He can hear where people are coming around them, how I assume being blind would be.
Right.
But an immovable object, or just an object sitting there that's not moving or making any noise, you'd be at a disadvantage to bump into stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that that's neat to show a little bit of the weakness, too. Daredevil is notorious most of the time, and the stuff I've read and seen anyway, with just, he always knows where everything is. I think Daredevil even has, that clicking echolocation thing that...
Yeah, where he would see in his mind's eye kind of the sound waves bouncing off of different objects.
Which makes him not blind.
But there are blind people who use echolocation.
Oh yeah, there's that video.
There's a couple of different
skateboarding kid I saw.
Yeah, there's a
clicking as
skateboarding
he's
kid.
going.
There is an African American guy who would use it. I saw a special on just people with those extra abilities. This guy was born with I can't remember if he had. I think the African American guy had cancer or something and it robbed him of his blindness when he was a child. And he would make clicking noises with his tongue and listen for the sound waves to bounce off of him.
Yeah, I think that's the video I saw of him skateboarding.
Yeah. So.
And yeah, he's like jumping over trash cans and shit too, just skating down the street.
Yeah. But this guy would ride a bike. And I mean, it looks a little awkward because he's kind of weaving back and forth a bit.
Uh-huh.
But why is that funny?
A blind dude riding a bike weaving back and forth is a little funny to me. I know. It's a little insensitive, and I'm not making fun of the blind. I understand. It's just anybody weaving down the street, like, look at him go, is just a little funny to me. I guess I'm a bad person.
No, I mean, people are just too damn sensitive anymore.
If I can't make fun of that blind guy, then
I mean,
what am I even doing?
Well, I mean, people get made fun of for being fat. People get bullied and this and that. And
for having a big nose.
For having a big nose.
Yeah, I'm just pulling that out of thin air.
Yeah. That probably has nothing to do with
my big nose.
I mean, to be fair, your nose isn't that big. It's not the most
It's not the biggest nose I've ever seen in my entire life. It's not the most
disconcerting thing on your face. That fucking half ratty Amish beard you've got going on is...
Fuck you, dude. Half ratty Amish beard. This is the most facial hair I can grow. I just want you to picture me at home.
Not everybody can be a gorilla like me.
Normal size nose and just the fullest, most lush beard you've ever seen on a man. That's what I have right now.
That's not what he has at all.
I look like I hit puberty literally 8 minutes ago.
Getting back on topic a little bit. Shintaro Katsu starred in several of the Zatoichi movies. The Tale of Zatoichi in 1962. The Tale of Zatoichi Continues. New Tale of Zatoichi in 63. Zatoichi Meets the One-Armed Swordsman in 71. And then he's also done several other samurai films, including The Shogun Assassin.
I'm looking forward to the Zatoichi Rattlesnake Dick crossover.
Rattlesnake Dick crossover? Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if that fight would be very good. He'd just, pull out the rattlesnake dick, it would rattle, and then he'd just cut it off.
No, he doesn't have
womp, womp.
A literal rattlesnake dick. Rattlesnake Dick, the cowboy. Last episode, you gave me a quiz, different cowboy names. One of them was Rattlesnake Dick. What was his cowboy name? He was an outlaw.
Was it Rattlesnake Dick?
Yeah, it was Rattlesnake Dick. I went on for like 20 minutes about rattlesnake dicks. People fucking rattlesnakes.
Like, I remember that from last week, but I don't think it was Rattlesnake Dick. We combined two names. It was Rattlesnake something and then Dick something.
No, it was Rattlesnake Dick.
I don't know. We'd have to listen to it again.
We don't have to listen to it. It was Rattlesnake Dick. Time will be on my side on this one.
One of the other movies that actually going back to the Westerns, Yojimbo has had a couple of different remakes, including Fistful of Dollars, starring Clint Eastwood, and then that went on with A Few Dollars More and a couple other. I think there was 3 or 4 movies in that series.
What do you think it is about samurai movies that make remakes with cowboys so conducive? Well, is it the same idea of the lone traveler?
I think so.
Little villages.
Yeah, there's that stigma.
You're a stranger in the new towns kind of thing.
Yeah, Yojimbo actually starred Shintaro Katsu as well. And that one is one of my favorites. The guy wanders into town, and there are 2 warring families, if I remember correctly. I think they're beer brewers or something to that effect, sake brewers. Mm-hmm. And the town is just, they're getting protection money from the other members of the town, and they're at a war with each other. the Yojimbo comes in, and he just kind of sits around and gathers information, and then starts screwing with both of the families and making deals, and then making backhanded deals with the other family, and just I think he eventually ends up getting them to destroy each other.
Yeah.
And to make the point, there's no sense in this in this kind of conduct.
So he teaches them a lesson in the end.
Yeah. Which is the same thing that happens in Fistful of Dollars. So, and then also Last Man Standing, which I have not seen, but starred Bruce Willis, was also inspired by Yojimbo, but I have not seen it, so I can't speak on it.
Did you know that the modern idea of bushido was actually created in 1900?
Oh, really?
Yep. By a man named Nitobe Inanzo, who was writing a book on samurai, titled Bushido, The Soul of Japan. And he took a bunch of different samurai book writings from through history and kind of compiled, and these were books that were basically saying, this is what a samurai should be, this is what a samurai should do. But he took all of this information and compiled it together and created modern Bushido as we know it and said, this is what the samurai were like. Even though the samurai weren't actually like that. These were just different books written about how you should be.
Huh.
It would be it would be the same as like, as I'm sure there are probably multiple books written about podcasts that say like, if you do a podcast, it shouldn't be longer than 45 minutes. And another one says, if you do a podcast, you should always have a woman or whatever.
Yeah.
And then somebody hundreds of years from now finding these different books and compiling it together and saying the podcasters all lived life this way. They never went more than 45 minutes. They always had a woman. It's kind of a stretch for a comparison, but it's the same sort of thing.
Right. That's weird. I thought that the Bushido Code was older than that. Because that was the tail end of the Samurai Dynasty.
They followed some of the rules they followed with the nobility and following their master and everything, or not their master, but the emperor or whoever.
Yeah.
But the Bushido, the modern Bushido Code as we know it, was created in 1900. From a compilation of stuff, and also the idea that a samurai unwaveringly serves their master, even to death, was actually picked up by the Japanese government in like the early 1900s and became a military thing, where they used this sense of like, you serve the greater good, this is noble, this is how we used to be, and they kind of made it known like this is how everybody lived to better control the military. That same mentality led into like the kamikaze fighters of World War II.
Yeah.
Stemmed directly from that. The Japanese government used these ideals, especially the unwavering loyalty, for military purposes.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I thought that the Bushido Code was a lot older than that. And
again, a lot of places that I read led to that. But then some of them also said that he did pull some of them from the Bushi Code that's been around for a while. So that could be part of it. But a lot of samurai, from a lot of stuff I've read, for the most part, samurai were mainly mercenaries. Samurai would serve their master, but they would serve like what would basically be equivalent to like dukes in European culture. Like, I own 1,000 acres of land and there's a couple towns on it, so everybody pays taxes to me.
Yeah.
The samurai would serve the equivalent of that in Japanese culture. And depending on the person, a lot of times the samurai were just basically hired thugs. They had throughout history, for at least some of history, I'm not saying all, because again, I didn't read super deep into it. But for some of history, they were just real royalty, or dressed royally, and just kind of did whatever they wanted. Their boss said, these people haven't paid me enough, go rough them up, and they go and kill them. Steal their money. I did find also that the origin of the idea of samurai stemmed from archers in the late 700s, early 800s. There was a big culture of horseback archery.
Yeah.
And that's where the idea, we still have it now with samurai being good archers, but where it stemmed from way back then, and this is one of those things that from what I read is kind of up for debate, but that the idea of samurai as a whole comes from those archers of the time. Mm-hmm. And then there was a whole lot more stuff I didn't read because it was really long. But
I didn't want to read all. I didn't want to really research because, man, it would just take forever.
Well, no, I was researching, but whenever I'm researching something and it's like 10 pages of like this dynasty took this one and then fought with this family, and it's just a bunch of names and none of them I recognize.
Yeah.
My eyes glaze over and it's hard to retain anything.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But some of them said that, at that certain point, Japan was, more separated into a bunch of little towns and villages as opposed to a unified country.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of war going on, and some places were saying that a lot of the horseback archers came from Korea during a war, and then they kind of did a trade with them, and et cetera, so.
Yeah. So the shogun, which means military commander general, was often one of the hereditary military governors of Japan from 1192 to 1867. In this period, the shoguns, or their shiken regents, were the de facto rulers of Japan, though they were technically appointed by the emperor. So the shogun were just the generals of the early armies, and I think they were usually appointed as, the heads of towns and stuff like that. When Portuguese explorers first came into contact with the Japanese, they described Japanese conditions in analogy, likening an emperor with great symbolic authority but little political power to the Pope, and the shogun to secular European rulers, in example, the King of Portugal. In keeping with the analogy, they even used the term emperor in reference to the shogun regent in the case of Toyotomi Hideyoshi, whom missionaries called Emperor Taiko-sama, from Taiko and the honorific Sama. The modern rank of shogun is equivalent to generalissimo, although the original meaning of shogun is simply a general as a title. It is used as the short form of Sei Taishogun, the governing individual at various times in the history of Japan, ending when Tokugawa Yoshinobu relinquished the office to the Meiji Emperor in 1867. Don't you love these history lessons?
Yeah, see, it's all really interesting stuff.
Yeah, it definitely can be. I mean, just reading it off.
It's so heavy sometimes, though, which, makes me sound like the laziest person in the entire universe.
Well, I mean, when you're going into talking about, this dynasty and this dynasty and this dynasty, I mean, that does get a little hard to muddle through. You kind of you have to take it in small bites. That's one of the reasons why a Wikipedia page about certain things is a little easier to digest.
Yeah. It's hard to read into this podcast, who we started out talking about. Wanting to talk about samurai has now devolved into us talking about how boring it is to read about this. It's hard to digest something when it's referencing a bunch of dynasties, and it's, you have to have a basic understanding, it seems like, of the history already to even get why it's a big deal when it's like, yeah, this dynasty fought this dynasty and then this happened. If you don't understand any of the originals, you don't know the building blocks, then the new stuff doesn't make any sense to you.
Exactly.
I would say it's super interesting, though. If you, happen to be hearing this and anything we've said slightly piques your interest, there is a huge, rich history, and it is really interesting stuff.
Yeah, it really is. The reason why I pulled up Shogun is just because I wanted to look up Daisho to try and get a...
Daisho, from what I was reading earlier, I think means landowner, like the head landowner or something.
Well, this says... Daisho literally means big little, is a Japanese term for a matched pair of traditionally made Japanese swords worn by the samurai class in feudal Japan.
Oh, well, maybe I'm thinking of Daisho? There's a Y in there, maybe? Or I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they called samurai Daisho just because of the swords at some point. I don't know.
We are so underprepared.
We really are. We're the worst podcasters in the world.
I would say the book that I was reading besides Wikipedia a lot from is called Samurai, the Story of Japan's Greatest Warriors. Samurai, the Story of Japan's Great Warriors by Stephen Turnbull. I'm sure you can find it on Amazon or something. I would definitely recommend checking it out. I've looked through this book a lot. Clearly, I haven't gleaned that much information from it, but it's good. I mean, it's hundreds of pages. I found it super cheap at a flea market, but I'm sure you could get it on Amazon, probably cheaper than what it would actually cost.
Yeah. Tell them a little bit about about those. Like they even go into the different periods and the dress that the samurai
the
would
book
wear
itself
during different
starts
shogunates.
from the world before samurai is the first chapter, and this is like early tribal Japan, and goes all the way up to bushido and samurai in modern times. It also has a bunch of different inserts with kind of like clear paper overlays where you can flip from page to page. And it starts out with, on the very bottom page is like a guy wearing the bare minimum of like a tunic. And then as you flip the pages over, it shows you the next layer he would wear underneath his armor.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Stephen Turnbull is not paying us for talking about this book, which I think if he heard the podcast, he would want us to pay him. But it is.
Don't even talk about my book, you unprepared jackanapes.
It is a really good book, though. I'd recommend if you wanted to get something, especially in hardcover or hard copy, this is a really good book to read. It's got a lot of cool information, a lot of pictures. But I want to talk about my favorite samurai thing.
Okay.
But first, Remington, a question.
Shoot.
Who do you call when you want some pepperoni?
I believe you're talking about the Samuraipizzacats.
Oh yeah, Samuraipizzacats. Cartoon from my childhood.
Yeah.
And probably early teens. I don't even remember what fucking channel it was on.
I believe it was on Fox. It came on right after Bananas in Pajamas.
Samuraipizzacats is a cartoon series produced by Saban,
Yeah.
which did, pretty much every Japanese show to American TVs.
Before Funimation came along and cornered the market.
Yeah, Saban did it. Samuraipizzacats, if you haven't seen it, and I feel bad for you if you haven't seen it, because the show is just fucking ridiculous.
Who do you call when you want some pepperoni?
Samuraipizzacats, dude. Samuraipizzacats follows 3 samurai pizza cats, 2 male pizza cats, Speedy Cerviche, and Guido Anchovy. Which is the most... I was watching it recently. Actually, before I came over, I was showing my girlfriend and her daughter the opening theme song. Is that a little racist to name him...
A little?
Guido Anchovy?
No, it's a lot racist.
But Guido Anchovy...
He's the leader of the bunch. He's a heck of a fighter and makes a heck of a lunch.
That's Speedy Cerviche.
Oh, yeah.
Guido Anchovy is a wild romantic rover who gets down with a love hangover.
Yeah.
And then the third one, the best one, Polyester, who is the female cat.
Little Polyester, who's never afraid, going into battle when the bad guys invade.
And the premise was that they owned a pizza place in Japan.
Oh, God.
Are you laughing from just remembering the ridiculousness of this show?
I'm watching I'm playing the theme song in my head.
They ran a pizza place. They were also samurai. And there was the villain of the entire show who was, do you remember the villain, Remington? The Big Cheese, who was a rat, a very sexually ambiguous rat, who oftentimes, for no discernible reason, would be dressed as a woman.
Yeah.
And then he had the voice of, it was somebody trying to do the voice of, I think, Paul Lend.
Yeah.
Is that his name? The guy, oh, I'm Paul Lend. Oh, he used to be on Hollywood Squares and had like a real...
Well, I don't know.
Because the Big Cheese had the same voice as the guy who sings the theme song. But they fought the Big Cheese as he did whatever ridiculous cartoon kid scheme that he had that week. The Big Cheese had his second in command, I think Bad Bird or Bad Crow. I think Bad Bird was just his little minions. I can't remember. But anyway, it was just a ridiculous show. It was set in feudal Japan, but with a modern pizza place. Inevitably, as the shows go, every time something would happen, the Samuraipizzacats would need to go to wherever the action was happening. So there was the scene, and it was the same stock scene every time.
Yeah.
Of their pizza place would like
transform
into a cannon. And just fire them individually across the map to wherever they needed to go. And there was always a mom and her do you remember this? The mom and the super fat son, who were always in the foreground and would always say something stupid. A lot of times apropos of nothing going on.
Yeah.
You can find full episodes on YouTube. I would definitely recommend at least watching one.
Oh God, it's so...
the theme song itself, when you hear it, will get stuck in your head. I don't know, Rem, with how you have it hooked up right now, if there is a way that you can play the Samuraipizzacats theme song as we go out. Do you have that equipment hooked up or probably not?
I switched over, so no, I don't. But I'll put it up. I'll put it in post.
Okay, so Rem will put the Samuraipizzacats theme on at the end of the episode. It's catchy. It'll get stuck in your head.
Yeah.
Fortunately, at this point, we're not remotely anywhere near size enough that I think anybody, law-wise, is going to care if we use that.
Of the 54 episodes that were originally produced in Japan, 52 were translated into English. The 2 untranslated episodes were clip shows that did little to further the series' plot. There was a plot?
I watched it on and off. I don't remember any sort of plots.
Some of the episodes of the dubbed version were never aired in the U.S. for censorship reasons.
Which makes sense, too.
Yeah.
I think my favorite part, and I had totally forgotten about this, during the theme song, they straight up call out the Ninja Turtles, which is fantastic. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They say the line as they're singing about the Pizza Cats, they've got more fur than any turtle ever had.
Yeah.
Which is just great to me that they're calling them out. And if we ever do a Ninjas episode, I think we can. We probably do a Ninja Turtles episode.
Yeah.
I mean, well, you weren't were you a Ninja Turtles fan? Because I fucking ate, slept, and breathed Ninja Turtles for my childhood.
I really was. But like a lot of things of my childhood, I just don't remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about my long-term memory, but it is just garbage.
Were you a child?
I think I was born into...
A rambling man?
Lord, I was born a rambling man. The theme song for the English dub naturally differs from the original, a common practice for dubbing at the time. In keeping with the parodic? No, like parody, parodic?
Oh, yeah, parodic.
Parodic nature of the show, the lyrics of the new theme song make a number of references to American pop culture. Michael Arlington, a writer for the series, also sang the theme song in an impersonated Paul Lynde voice. I knew it! Yep, being credited as singing sensation Googie Gomez. According to the producer, Andy Thomas, Arrington had a few drinks before the recording session for the songs started, and as a result accidentally stuttered on the line, "This cat gets down with a love hangover." That mistake was left in the final version of the theme.
That is fantastic. Definitely, and I wish I could remember any weird episodes I've seen so far, because I've seen a pretty decent amount. But
I'd love to go back and watch that whole
A few weeks ago, I watched an episode or two on YouTube with my daughter, and her look of bewilderment, and there are some weird fucking shows on Cartoon Network now.
Yeah.
I mean, like the regular show, stuff like that are so weird, but still her look of bewilderment, she enjoyed it, but of just like, what is going on, was fantastic.
And that, my friend, is what anime is all about. You just watch an anime and go, what the fuck is happening here?
And my other favorite samurai show, and I don't know, I think you've seen some of this, Samurai Champloo.
Yeah.
I'm not a anime person, really, but Samurai Champloo is awesome. And I think it's done by the people who did Cowboy Bebop. Well, Remington, if you can't find what you're looking for, you may have to commit seppuku, which translates to stomach cutting. Seppuku is the act of committing ritual suicide for all kinds of different reasons, really. As I was reading the history of seppuku, there was just so many reasons why it became... in the 1700s is when it really took on the ceremonial thing that we picture it as now. Whenever there was the second person there when you commit seppuku. I can't remember his name, and at this point I'm not going to take forever and look it up.
Yeah, stab yourself and then they chop
the guy cuts off your head. It got to the point ceremonially where you didn't even stab yourself. You would just reach for the sword and the guy would cut your head off. And apparently, this is kind of fucked up, you would need a master swordsman because to do it properly, they would have to cut off your head, but leave enough hanging skin that your head wasn't totally cut from your body, but it was just skin connected, so that your head would flop over onto your chest in a position like you were holding your own head ready for burial. So the idea was not to fully decapitate you, but to kill you with one stroke and get it to the point where your head would flop over onto your chest.
I wonder how often that worked out.
I don't know. I'd venture to say probably 40% of the time.
Uh-oh. So sorry.
God.
Yes.
I want to say I am not racist. The stereotypical Samurai Japanese voice is fun. Remington, entirely different story, but it is a lot of fun to do.
God, I hate you. Why do you always make me out to be just this terrible racist?
I don't know what you're talking about. That was a joke. If you think it happens all the time, that says more about you.
No, you do it all the time. Constantly calling me some sort of racist. Samurai Champloo was directed by Shinichiro Watanabe, who did Cowboy Bebop, yes.
Samurai Champloo, I don't remember the names of those characters, who they are, but it follows two samurai who, in the very first episode, meet up and end up getting in a fight to the death. One of them is a Ronin. Are they both Ronin?
Jin is just a swordsman. He's not a true Ronin.
Jin is the glasses? One of the glasses or the other one?
He's the wild-haired.
Okay, and then the other one is a Ronin.
Fu. Yeah, his name is Fu. He is the composed and stoic Ronin.
But they meet up.
Oh, wait. No. That's the girl. No, Jin, you were right. Jin is the Ronin. Mugen is the wild-haired guy. It follows Mugen, an impudent and freedom-loving vagrant swordsman, Jin, a composed and stoic Ronin, and Fu, a brave young girl who asks them to accompany her in her quest across Japan to find the samurai who smells like sunflowers.
Yeah. They meet in the first episode. Some craziness is going on. They realize that they're equally matched as swordsmen, so they start to fight. I can't remember if one of them does something to the other, but I think it really boils down to both of them are just looking for the ultimate fight.
Yeah.
They start a fight to the death. The girl runs in because she needs saving. Or she saves them. They're about to get beheaded in the first episode. She saves them. They say, okay, now we can finish our fight. She says, no, I saved you. So you're going to help me find the samurai who sells like sunflowers. And they actually, I forgot about this, they flip a coin. And they're like, all right, we'll flip a coin. If it lands on whatever, we'll help you. Huh. But they end up helping her. And the entire series, they say, because it went on, I only think for one season. I only think there's 13 episodes. But the entire series, they're going through all these crazy adventures. Awesome show. But the entire time, they keep talking about how once we help her, we're finishing our fight to the death. And without really spoiling the rest of it, the last episode, they finished that fight to the death. Have you seen the last episode?
No, I don't think I had.
They finished that fight to the death. And it's awesome.
That's cool.
So I would recommend Samuraipizzacats for fun if you have kids or even if you're stoned or just want to enjoy something. Samuraipizzacats.
Right.
Samuraishamploo, pretty awesome. I like the combination of like sort of hip hop music and modern society mixed in. Because Samuraishamploo kind of takes place like, it's feudal Japan, but there's just randomly like cell phones and shit. Just randomly someone will have a cell phone.
Yeah.
Or there will be a car that drives by, but then that's it.
Yeah. And if you want to take that a little further and go with a fair amount of comedy coupled with kind of some of the more serious aspects of Champloo, look up Gintama, and you can actually find full episodes on Crunchyroll.com. I subscribed to Crunchyroll for a little while just to watch the rest of this series because I started watching it on a free trial, and I was like, I have to finish this series. So I paid, I don't know, 2 or 3 months worth of subscription fee to watch this entire series. It originally started off as a comic in the Weekly Shonen Jump magazine.
Okay.
Which is well known for, do you know any of the, like, in Japan, it's not really you're looked down upon, like, if you're an adult reading comics.
Yeah, you're otaku, right?
Yeah.
And that's considered an insult a lot of times.
Yeah. So...
No, you're not looked down on for reading comics. Comics are huge in Japan. It's not uncommon to see like a businessman reading a comic.
Or something like that. They're,
So Shonen Jumps are like the Tiger Beat of anime?
I guess. They make a lot of references to that, like if you're reading this stuff and you're an adult, you're an otaku.
Yeah.
And it throughout the series, and they reference every time they do a new season, they end the last season like, well, this is the last time you're gonna see us. We're gonna get canceled, blah, blah, blah. And they come back in with the next season. They're like, oh my god, they actually renewed us for another fucking season. What's going on here?
I love, and like I said, I'm not a big anime person, but I love Japanese cartoons in the sense that they're very referential, self-referential even.
Yeah.
Like Sergeant Frog, have you ever seen that one?
No, I haven't.
It's done by the guy who created Gundam.
Okay.
And the idea is there's a race of frog people that come down into a house. The first one, Kiro, is his name, and he's like the leader of this frog rebellion. It's kind of very similar to Invader Zim, and that they sent him out to like, yeah, go here to Earth and figure it out.
Okay.
A single mom family finds him, and he tries to invade, but he can't communicate with them properly, so they hire him on as a maid. Even though they know he's a talking frog, they hire him on as a maid. And he lives there in the house, and his idea is, okay, I'll lull them into a false sense of security, and then I'll end up taking over. And he just ends up getting caught in the minutia of it. More of his people start to show up, and they stay in different houses and stuff.
Huh.
But anyway, the whole self-referential thing is, it's done by the same guy who did Gundam.
Yeah.
Created by. Well, the main character, Sergeant Frog, loves Gundam. So he gets distracted, and he ends up spending all of the money that he gets from doing housework, which he's supposed to be using to fund his invasion,
Right.
buying Gundam models. So his room is just covered, and he's a huge Gundam otaku, as they say. It's pretty good.
That's funny. Yeah, the Gintama series ran from April 4th, 2006 to March 25th, 2010. So that's several. There's 201 episodes of that. I think most of them are on Crunchyroll. And it takes place it's the tail end of the feudal Japan era, but instead of, I feel like we've talked about this before. Maybe it wasn't with you. The tail end where Japan starts getting into the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
Think The Last Samurai.
I haven't seen that.
With Tom. Wow, really? I don't blame you because Tom Cruise is kind of tired, but it's actually a really, really interesting movie to watch. Yeah, I would recommend it. So, Japan's, emperor is trying to modernize Japan, and they're pulling in, modern weaponry, and the samurai is going out of style, replacing swords with guns and things of that nature. So it kind of takes place in that, but instead of going to the industrial era Japan is invaded by wayward aliens.
Okay.
So there's this massive surge of aliens and tech that's getting meshed up with the tail end feudal Japan era. So there's Ronin, here and there and everywhere. It gets weird. I mean, there is an underlying story, but it pins on Gintama. Sorry, I had to burp.
You always look like you're about to throw up on the floor whenever you burp. I mean, I really think we need to have an entire episode discussing your intestines, because there's just so many horrible things that I see happen to you that...
It's set in Edo, which has been conquered by aliens named Amanto. The plot follows life from the point of view of samurai Gintoki Sakata, who works as a freelancer alongside his friends Senpachi Shimura and Kagura in order to pay the monthly rent. Sorachi added the science fiction setting to that's the writer and illustrator. Sorachi added the science fiction setting to develop characters to his liking after his editor suggested doing a historical series. It was licensed by Viz Media and turned into a series. And Gintoki is he's got wild white hair, and he's very much the Mugen of the series from Shampoo. And Senpachi is he's a kid whose father owned a dojo to train samurai. And I think his father died, I think, and he's trying to keep that idea alive. So he's very straight. He's the straight-laced comedy relief.
Okay.
There's another samurai whose name eludes me at the moment. He's got long black hair, and he's just got, a normal, samurai gi on. He's very straight-laced. But he has a big duck following him around named Elizabeth.
Like a horse-sized duck?
Like a human-sized duck. It's a man in a duck suit. And throughout the entire series, the duck is called Elizabeth, follows the samurai around. They make references to somebody being in the costume, but they never really reveal who it is until later in the series. And I believe they reveal it to be the writer-illustrator.
Of the show?
Of the series, of the original manga series. And it's just...
That's pretty... And it's called Gintama?
Gintama.
Gintama.
Yeah, Gintama. Literally silver soul, because he's got silvery whitish hair.
Well, did you know that the 7 virtues of the Bushido Code are rectitude, courage, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty? Apparently when the guy...
So that means that I probably shouldn't piss on your grave and bang your sisters?
You probably shouldn't dishonorably lie to a friend who you should respect incourageously. While doing the opposite of whatever rectitude is. Unrectitude. You are being entirely unrectitudinal.
Rectitudinal?
Unrectitudinal.
Rectitudinal.
Apparently the guy who created that Bushido Code was the guy I talked about from 1900. The idea of why he was trying to create a Bushido Code is he was trying to create a Japanese equivalent to Christianity. Which is why the Bushido Code has the 7 virtues, just like Christianity has the 7 virtues.
I gotcha. Okay. Oh, that makes sense.
It does make sense. All right, see what time we're at.
We're probably over, but I mean, this was a crapshoot of a podcast.
Well, anyway. And we've probably got 10 minutes of editing out between all the silence as we look on Wikipedia because we're horribly underprepared. I'm excited for next week, though.
Yeah.
No reason to say what it is yet. We'll leave our 2 listeners guessing, our 2 listeners being us.
Yeah.
But next week is going to be fun.
All right. Well, I will tack on the Samurai Pizza Cats to the end of this episode so you guys can enjoy the glory of that theme song.
Awesome.
And everybody listening, have a good night. Brandon?
Desu.
Don't you desu me, son of a bitch.
Bye.
Bye.
We are just awful at podcasting.
And little polyester, who's never afraid of going into battle when the bad guys invade. Here's Guido and Chovy, a wild romantic rover. This cat gets down with a love hangover. They're so bad, they've got more fur than any turtle ever had. Stronger than old cheese. Stronger than dirt. Out of my tail. Don't hurt me. Samurai Pizzacats. They're fighting crime. Oh yes, all over town. Samurai Pizzacats. They make great pizza, but that ain't all. Samurai Pizzacats. They're ready to fight. When you need them, just call. They know how to stop crime. Just do what they say. If you don't want a bad time, stay out of their way. Oh, I love those cats. Samurai Pizzacats. The heroes who always wear fur. Samurai Pizzacats. We hoped you liked the show. It's the best that we could do. Samurai Pizzacats. If you could do better, then we'd leave it up to you. Just a reminder, you might like to know, the cats will be back for another big show. Oh, gosh. Samurai Pizzacats. They're fighting crime. Oh, yes, all over town. 2, 4, 6, 8. Why do we expect your rain? The big cheese is the villain, who's lower than low. It's a rotten shame he lives in Little Tokyo. We've got a nasty bad bird and some nasty ninja crows. As soon as someone finds a script, we might begin the show. Sit right back, kick up your feet, and turn the sound up high. And if you want the full effect, go eat a pizza pie. Read all the credits so you'll know who did the work. One more time, they're fighting crime all over town.
What episode are we on?
8, 9? Hufflepuff.
8. On episode 8. Okay. And 5, 4, 3,